where's this computer? There we go. And so I actually have a introduction for each of us. So we're going to have everybody go around and tell who they are and introduce themselves to the rest of the group. But just to give you an idea of our agenda this morning, I do have it set for an hour and a half, but I'm really hoping to keep it to an hour this morning. Just a very brief reminder of our purpose as an advisory committee for youth apprenticeship, a reminder of where you can find some of our resources through CISA 9, career readiness overview, just to tie youth apprenticeship into all of the initiatives that are happening across the state with career readiness. And then the biggest chunk of our morning will be taking a look at the new YA programs and requirements. And there are new things that are happening at the DWD. So I want to make sure everybody's aware of those. And then questions from the group. So I'm going to go around and ask you to please introduce yourselves to the group by giving your name, your position in your company or district. And then our fun question is, what is your favorite summer fruit or vegetable? And I want you to think about these three questions because we're going to come back to these at the end. If you are especially a business that has a youth apprentice in it, I would really love to know what went well last year, what changes you would like to see, because we definitely do bring information back to the DWD when we see things that we would like to improve or make changes on. And then how is the YA program helping your students or businesses? So I want to get both the district perspective and the business perspective on how things are going with YA. So I am going to just kind of go down my little chart of pictures here. So I have Brooke first.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Brooke Holbrook. I have met some of you. I joined the CISA 8, CISA 9 team in March. So I'm still fairly new. I'm excited to meet those of you that I haven't met yet. I'm working with Lynn on everything career readiness. And the answer to the fun question about my favorite fruit or vegetable is I've only planted one thing, and that's tomatoes. So that is going to be my favorite this year. And I harvested 4 cherry tomatoes yesterday. So yay.
I forgot to share. And it changes throughout the summer, but at the beginning, it's always beets. I always love those first beets. All right, Carol. Oh, you're muted.
Should probably unmute myself, right? I usually have a sidekick doing this for me when we're doing Zoom meetings. I never have to do it myself. I'm Carol Swan from Crossbridge Community Bank. I am the marketing director, but I'm also the YA coordinator. I'm hoping that Melissa Carl will be joining me. She's a little busy on a Monday morning, but I think she will be the one taking over my position when I retire in June next year. So I'm hoping to bring her or someone on board with these meetings, and they can hopefully give you as much information as they can about the program that we have for finance.
Wonderful.
My favorite summer fruit or vegetable. I have a lot of them. I grow raspberries and blueberries in my garden at home, so I love both of those. But I also, tomatoes are one of my favorite as well.
Great.
So, yeah.
Jean, who keeps us all on track with YA at CISA 9. I don't know what we'd do without her.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jean Haladish. I am the program assistant for youth apprenticeship here at CISA 9. Retirement is also in my vocabulary, coming up very soon. My favorite, I have a new favorite this summer. I, by mistake, bought orange tomatoes, tomato plants. I've never had tomatoes produced like they are this year, and I thought I had one that was orange. And my husband brought in another one last night from another plant. So I think all my tomatoes are going to be orange this year. They're a little less acid, very, very tasty. So I highly recommend.
Very cool. All right. And then I have Ryan next on mine.
Good morning, everyone. Ryan Hughesby, Tomahawk High School. I'm the principal there and also our career and technical ed coordinator. So something with fruits and vegetables. I don't know if it's my favorite yet, but this summer we tried planting some of the shishito peppers. And so we had our first batch of those earlier in the year and they were really good. So now you can see the next batch is almost ready for picking. So we'll see what happens there. But that was a new experiment for us.
And how hot are they?
They're not hot, so that's what I like about them. So, you kind of guess just one way to prepare them is frying them up in a little bit of oil and adding some seasoning to them. But we had them once on vacation, so we thought, oh, let's try growing them once and see what happens.
Very cool.
We're good. Yeah.
All right, Jason.
Good morning, Jason Bertrand, Leona Middle High School principal. Favorite summer fruit would probably be blackberries. We have a lot of wild blackberries on our property. So yeah, those are my favorite.
Great. Jess.
I'm Jessica Kao, the high school counselor at Crandon. I feel like strawberries is a pretty good staple, like if it's in other things or just alone. But I love like all fruits and vegetables, so it's hard to pick one.
All right, thank you. Raquel.
Good morning, Raquel Novak, ATR with DWD, covering 11 counties, starting in Adams, going all the way up to Vilas. And my favorite fruit or vegetable, I'm not picking one. That would just be rude to the farmer's market, right? So whatever's fresh that week, and I can pick up. And then I'm also introducing my counterpart, Jessica Williams. She is our apprenticeship navigator, and she markets and educates to the public on apprenticeship. She covers 42 counties, so she is a busy lady. And her favorite summer vegetable is corn on the cob.
Oh.
Unfortunately, her microphone is not working today, but she is in attendance. So just introducing us both.
Great, thank you. Jamie.
Good morning. My name's Jamie Miller. It looks like Gammy. Good to see some familiar faces from my prior time at Nicolay. So, hey, everybody. I am a business and marketing teacher at Lakeland High School, and I don't know, I'm a tomato fan and a blueberry fan as well.
Awesome. Lexi.
Good morning, Lexi Allen, school counselor at Rylander High School. I'm sorry, I just stepped in. Are we sharing all three of those, Lynn?
No, the bottom three are just to think about because we're going to come back to them at the end. So for right now, just what's your favorite summer fruit or vegetable?
Strawberries.
Awesome. And Sarah. And I'm not sure if Sarah, oh, there she is.
Yeah, sorry. So I'm Sarah Gruber. I'm the dual credit coordinator for Nicolay College, and my favorite summer fruit is a nectarine.
Oh, very good. And then we have somebody on the phone. And I'm not sure who that is. And they're muted, so we can't hear them either. So if you're on the phone and you want to introduce yourself, let me know. All righty. There we go. So just very brief purpose setting for this particular committee. We are required by the DWD to have a steering committee for youth apprenticeship that meets a couple of times a year. So we also meet in the spring. And really, it's about you helping us with the coordination of the program by giving us information and marketing strategies for businesses and school districts. So, as you learn of new businesses that you think are interested or getting that information out there about youth apprenticeship, that would be great. Helping us to monitor youth apprenticeship. We've got, many of you are absolutely involved in youth apprenticeship at CISA 9. So just helping us to make sure that we're following all the guidelines. Looking at fiscal updates, the overall monitoring of the activities of the CISA 9 coordinators, which would be Brooke and me, to ensure that the program expectations are being met, and then to act as the employer experts. That's really our biggest ask of especially our employers is you guys are the experts in the field in this particular geographical area. So just helping us to facilitate those business connections, keep us informed of any new outreach that we should do to businesses. Luckily for us, I can say that at least as far as CISA 9 is concerned, we really aren't necessarily looking for additional funding opportunities. Last year, the DWD did increase the per student amount for youth apprenticeship. And so we were able to fund everything that our districts needed and our time doing the coordination, and even purchase some nice marketing materials that we're going to be using this fall as thank yous for our businesses. So we're really in a very good place, good financially. But we do have districts like Tomahawk that is looking to expand their program. They would like to get even more kids. So, you know, if you do know of funding opportunities, especially that we can use with some of our districts that are looking to expand their program and maybe add some coordination, we're always happy to hear about that. Just a little overview of what YA has looked like over the years in CISA 9. Boy, has it grown. Since 13-14, that was the furthest back that I was able to get information. We had 19 completers back during that year. Now in 21-22, just looking at the numbers, and we did take a little bit of a hit from 2021 because of COVID, but still we had 92 completers for a youth apprenticeship in the CISA 9 program. 55% of them were female, and we've always kind of been in that range. So we've always done a very good job at CISA 9 of really making sure that our numbers are pretty even when it comes to gender. We had 6% of our participants were minority students last year. And so that's always something that we're keeping an eye on. We also took a look this year at the number of students with disabilities. And so we'll talk about that as we go along. But if we look at the average that our students made last year, and many of them are making much more than minimum wage. Minimum wage is the least they can make, but a lot of our students are making a lot more than that. The 450 hours that our students are putting in, our students made in salary over $487,000 last year. So what a tremendous benefit to our businesses to have employees that they're able to tap, and absolutely for our students to get that really vital work-based learning experience before they get out in the field. We have some goals that we are working on at CISA 9 for the coming year, and that is always to increase the number of students who are taking advantage of youth apprenticeships. So we want to help our districts to grow their programs as much as possible. We're really looking at those high need, high wage areas that align to the regional career pathways we're working on. And I'll touch on that a little bit when we talk about career readiness. But the pathways we've created so far are manufacturing, construction, IT, and health science. And this year, we are going to also be adding finance and ag, food, and natural resources as regional career pathways. So we're really looking to expand our opportunities for youth apprenticeship in those areas. Help students to make those networking connections to employers in the career clusters that they're really interested in. We see a vast majority of our students, you'll see in this chart, that are in hospitality and tourism and in marketing. And for many of our students, that means that they're working at a fast food place, or they're working at a local store like Walmart. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we want to really help students, if at all possible, to get experience in careers that they're really interested in pursuing once they graduate. So we're hoping to increase the numbers in some of those other areas like manufacturing, like IT, like finance and health sciences, to really help students get the work experience in the areas that they're interested in pursuing once they graduate. And then looking at our students with disabilities, we definitely want to increase the number of students with disabilities that are engaged in youth apprenticeship. Of all of our 92 students last year, 2% of those students were students with disabilities. So we want to make sure that youth apprenticeship is available to all of our students. So we had 97 enrollees. We expect to have 92 completers. And our average wage, as I said, is definitely over minimum wage at $11.17. So again, just taking a look at where our students are kind of falling into the different career clusters. Ag, food, and natural resources is another one that has been pretty small for us. We only had 2 of our 92 in it last year, but we know that that is going to be, especially in the forestry area, something that's expanding, because UW-Stevens Point was able to get a workforce innovation grant for the next couple of years to really expand opportunities in the forestry area, and that falls into ag, food, and natural resources. So we're hoping that that also will result in more students pursuing that and more businesses being willing to allow students to pursue that as a career. So this is what our students looked like last year as far as the different career clusters that they were divided into. We do have some great resources, both for our districts and for our businesses and for our students when it comes to youth apprenticeship. We have a CISA 9 website, and we always have that page updated on the different resources that everybody needs for youth apprenticeship. I also created a companion website to CISA 9 that is just specifically on career readiness. So that's our ACP website. And you can also find information on YA there. And then for our local coordinators, we have a live binder, and I do need to go through there and make sure that everything is updated, because things, like I said, just keep changing on us. But we do try to keep, especially the forms and things, active on that live binder, so it's easier for our local coordinators to find information. And we have a brand new marketing tool that we created over the summer. So as we got information from our local coordinators about what was happening with their students, every year I asked every district, please share your success stories. And not all districts did, but the districts that did, thank you, thank you, thank you. You are very prominently featured in this. So this is something we've created paper copies of this. So we printed them at one of our local printers here in Green Bay. And so that will be available when we have our coordinator meeting in September. We'd love to get these into the hands of students from last year and from businesses from last year. And then you can use it as a marketing tool for students and businesses this year. I'm going to turn off the sound so you don't hear the flipping, but it just gives information on what is youth apprenticeship, how does that work into registered apprenticeship, what does pathways have to do with all of this. And then for every one of the career clusters, if we had a student success story, we featured that on the page. So we don't have a success story yet for ag, food, and natural resources, hopefully next year, but we had a student from Tomahawk in architecture and construction. And we also have QR codes that will take you to the DPI website for the pathways. So if you want more information on the regional career pathway for that particular career cluster, you just click on that QR code and it will take you there. We have one of our students in finance from Tomahawk High School, a student in health science from Leona High School, a student in hospitality, lodging, and tourism from Tomahawk, a student in IT from Tomahawk who actually worked for the district. He was hired by the district to do IT, so that's really cool. So you can see Tomahawk shared a lot of their information. We've got manufacturing and STEM were 2 that we did not have success stories for, so hopeful to add those next year. And then we had a student in marketing from Northland Pines. And then transportation, distribution, and logistics also from Northland Pines. Some information on our program, and then a list of our YA consortium districts and our advisory committee, and then all of our businesses that were part of YA last year. So this is a great marketing tool that our local coordinators can use to thank businesses for being part of YA. We can put it out in, some of the local waiting rooms so people can find out what's happening with youth apprenticeship in the CISA 9 region. And you can use that for marketing for getting new businesses on board. So that was one of the things we were able to do with the funding this year. So we're very excited about adding that as a marketing piece. The DWD also has new YA outreach materials that they created. And I know last year I printed paper copies of all of those for our local coordinators. If you're a local coordinator and you don't have those yet, let me know. But I also have live links to those flyers, and I live linked it to our CISA 9 folder rather than the DWD website, because a lot of the things on the DWD website are password protected. Why they would need marketing password protected, I'm not sure, because you want information to get out there, but I downloaded everything into a folder. So you should be able to access those through the folders, both for the employer side and for the student side. So when you're connecting with students and employers about youth apprenticeship and they want things just about youth apprenticeship in general or specific career clusters, there are pages on all of those. And flip to the next page. Oh, it's still, let me turn that off. Okay, come on, computer. There we go. Oh, it really went forward. All right, so just a little tie into career readiness. That's the terminology that we're hearing now from the DPI rather than just academic and career planning. And the DPI's vision is that every child is a graduate, college, and career ready. Youth apprenticeship definitely works into that. We are creating across our North Central region, which CISA 9 is a part of, regional career pathways to help students better navigate how to prepare for a career. And so in that North Central region, we've got 10 counties, 37 school districts comprised of 3 CISAs, all of CISA 9, 5 districts from CISA 8, and then another 11 districts from CISA 5. In 2 redos, the area 5 is Grow North and area 6 is Centergy. And then all of our higher ed partners, which would be NTC and WTC, Midstate, Nicolet, UW Stevens Point, and the Medical College of Wisconsin. And so when we start looking at the regional career pathways, we have to start with the pathways that the state has already constructed a template for. And so you can see on the screen the different areas that the DPI has created or is in the midst of creating those templates. And then from there, we take a look at our region and we get great labor market information from Brian Kalish and Mitch Rupp. And Mitch just presented all of that information to our team last week. And then from there, we looking at that labor market information, we determine what makes the most sense to work on for the next year. So in our first year, we created regional career pathway maps for patient care and advanced manufacturing. Last year, it was architecture and construction and digital technology. And the 3 we're looking at for this year are ag, food and natural resources, finance, and education. And I didn't include education in the YA pathways when we looked at it because there is not a pathway yet for education for youth apprenticeship, but it's definitely something that we are continuing to message to the DWD that it is a huge need. We need to start growing our own and we need to have an education pathway. So hopefully that will be happening. So this is what an education or a regional career pathway looks like. It's 2 pages, and the first page really gives students a wonderful career ladder in all of these different career clusters and helps them to see, you know, if I want to go directly into the workforce out of high school, what are the types of jobs I could get and what kind of money am I going to make? All of these are live linked to a website called My Next Move, so they can actually do research on every one of these careers. And then as I move up in my education level and levels of experience, how do those jobs change? How does my salary change? And if I am looking to get a certificate or a registered apprenticeship or an associate degree, how do I find that information? With the click of one button, all of the post-secondary options for our region are available to students on that career ladder page. And then on the district side of things, there's a second page that lists all of the components a district would need to have in order for a student to pursue that career pathway. So it really shows students right from the get-go in 9th grade, here are all the things you can do if you're really interested in that particular career cluster. to pursue that for a career. So it tells them here the career and tech ed courses you should be taking while you're in high school, so you can start charting that out. Here are dual enrollment opportunities. Here, industry recognized credentials that students can get while they're in high school. Career-based learning experience of at least 90 hours. And of course, that's what youth apprenticeship is all about. That's really the Cadillac version of work-based learning for career pathways. So we are really very pleased with the fact that all 22 of our districts in CESA 9 are in a consortium for youth apprenticeship. And then career and technical student organizations like Skills USA, FBLA, et cetera. So we have found that students who participate in a career pathway where they really understand what to do in high school to prepare for post-secondary are more likely to graduate high school on time, to pursue that post-secondary credential in less years and for less money, because many times they're doing it while they're still in high school, they're starting. They gain access to a valuable network of job contacts, and that's our wonderful employers that are part of our youth apprenticeship consortium. And that's where they gain those important work readiness skills. And for our employers, it really helps them to close the skills gap by exposing students to the high demand careers earlier and accelerating them through the talent pipeline faster. So if you get those students while they're in high school, you're much more likely to retain them as future employees if you're helping them to see how you can help them with that career ladder. It allows employers to support educational programming to ensure current and relevant learning, and it's a more efficient way to establish and sustain education business partnerships. So I went through our goals already for the next year, but the way that Pathways works into that is really to help students to see those high need, high wage areas and help them to engage with employers in those regional career pathway areas of manufacturing, construction, digital technology, health science, finance, and ag, food, and natural resources. And finance and IT are two of those areas that are so broad that they really, students can work in a lot of different areas and be in IT because just about every larger business has an IT department. Every larger business has a finance department or an accountant. So we really hope with adopting those as the regional career pathways, that's going to open up opportunities for our students in youth apprenticeship. So now looking at youth apprenticeship itself and those areas that the DWD has been working on, they have been really also helping to ensure that YA program competencies are met and students are, as much as possible, signing up for dual credit classes and getting those certificates. And many of the things that we talk about in Pathways are also the goals of youth apprenticeship. So youth apprenticeship, the DWD has been modernizing the checklists. So some of you may have seen these last year. There's an overview document for every different career cluster that helps you to determine which specific pathway a student should be working in at your particular business. Then there's it's called the OJL on the job learning guide that has all of the checklists that the students have to gain those skills by the time they are done with their youth apprenticeship experience. And then there's a related instruction guide for our districts so that as students are working for our businesses in youth apprenticeship, they also need to be taking at least 1 credit of high school or 3 credits of college classes. And the DWD has given some guidelines as far as which would be the best classes for students to choose for every different pathway. So there's one guide for each pathway, and that guide contains an occupational overview, some career preparation requirements. The DPI employability skills is always the first checklist that you'll see, and then the competency checklist is specific to that particular career cluster and that pathway, that related instruction document. And then for our seniors, as they finish up, they also have a post-program completion survey. So we have an idea of if they're staying with their employer that they did their youth apprenticeship with, if they got a job with a different employer, if they're going on to school, all of that information is contained there. And we do have electronic copies of all of those documents. And just to give you an idea of what that looks like when we look at the checklist, it always lists here all the competencies that a student needs to do in order to be successful in this particular placement. And then as it breaks those requirements down, those competencies. If you look at analyze pre-flight requirements for aeronautics, and you, or as the employer or the youth apprenticeship coordinator, looks at that and says, well, what exactly does that mean? Underneath, there's a checklist of, not that a student has to do everything under the checklist, but it's a great place for you to go and say, oh, okay, yeah, does the student do most of these things? Yep, absolutely. Okay, I can check this off. The career preparation is no longer an option. Now it is required. So along with the checklist, every one of our students has to do one of three things. They either need to be participating in a local or regional career pathway, which means your district has to have created a local or regional career pathway in that pathway for a student to check that, or the student needs to be getting some kind of industry recognized certification. And there are several of them for each different pathway that are recommended in the OJL guide, or they need to have taken a dual credit course while they are doing their youth apprenticeship. So as long as the student has done one of those three things, they are good on career preparation. Related instruction, again, is 1 high school credit or 3 college credits. And there are some, as I was saying before, for every one of the pathways, they give you some recommendations for good courses for students to take to check that related instruction guide off. But, you know, we understand that many of our especially smaller districts do not necessarily have as many options for students to take in coursework as others do. And so we are very flexible in helping our districts decide what that related instruction can look like. So just because they're, you know, doing a finance pathway, for example, doesn't mean they have to be in an accounting class. We can definitely find some other coursework as well. That would be a great place to start, but that could meet that qualification. Youth apprentices have to perform 90% of the occupational tasks on the job. So that means that as you're looking over the list with your employer at the beginning of the year, and there might be one, that's what 90% is. There might be one skill that the employer says, man, we just don't have students do that. For one skill, you can have the employer tell you, instead, we have students do this thing, and then you can write that down and check that off. So they have that kind of flexibility, but only for one. Okay. Other than that, every single skill has to be something that the student has done on the job, and it has to be scored by that employer at the end of the year. So there is no such thing as an NA. There is no NA. Everything applies. So when you're sitting down with these checklists at the beginning of the year, and the employer and the local coordinator are having a conversation about which of these checklists work the best for this place of employment, please keep that in mind. There is no such thing as an NA. One of them, you can do one NA, and you have to come up with something else for the student to do in its place. And the safety and skills checklist, there are no NAs for that. All of those have to be done. So there's not a lot of flexibility when it comes to those checklists.
Lynn, can I just jump in and share the example that I had?
Yeah,
so just in respect to what Lynn just went over, being new to the specifics of the program, I was in that particular position with a employer that is new to the program, and they're trying to do everything right. And of course, we want to make sure they have a good experience out of the gate. And so shared with them kind of two different checklists. And the first one, they went through and they were great about identifying a plan for the student in 2 years. This is kind of what they wanted the student to do at their place of business. And then they kind of went through the checklist and said, this is when we see the student experiencing this based upon the timeline. And in that description, there was about 4 different areas where they said that student won't be doing that until year 2. But still they wanted that student to, you know, kind of follow that checklist for year 1. Well, that really can't happen. You know, I guess the resolution that we found was we found a different checklist or program area for them to follow instead, where they could meet all the criteria for year one. And then what we'll do is we'll revisit for year two, what is it that they're going to be doing? And do we need to switch to kind of same program area, but the pathway checklist was different. So it's real good to have those conversations, especially with all the changes that are coming from DWD with the employer, because otherwise you get to the end and then you're like, oh, shoot, this is not going to work now. So just, you know, to be aware of that and just go through that in the beginning is probably a really good way to kind of lead out that year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great example, Brooke. We do have some talking about those checklists. In some areas, you have more flexibility, like manufacturing, for example. There are, you know, that's one area that, and that might have been the area we were even looking at, that, you know, there are several different pathways that if a student is working for a manufacturer, that, you know, different routes you could go. And it's really just taking a look at those skills and determining what's going to work best for that employer. In some other areas, like, you know, if you've got a kid doing carpentry, they're doing carpentry. There really isn't a lot of wiggle room. So you really have to kind of look at your particular career cluster area and see what the options are. All of the ones that are on the screen right now, I think, except STEM. No, that's not true. We've had, the DWD has been working on these checklists for the last 2 years. So there are some that we have to start using this year. We don't have an option to use the old checklists anymore. Manufacturing or marketing just got done. So that one, we do have 1 year of a grandfather clause that we can use the old checklist for a year while we're figuring out the new checklists. STEM is a second one, and transportation, distribution, and logistics, which should have been over here, is the third one. So those 3 areas are brand new, and so they do let you use the old checklist for a year as you're figuring out how to use the new ones, but everything else, we are now on the new checklists. And, you know, as much as possible, if we can use the new checklist, we will. They also added a new area this year, and I would think it would fall under Ag, Food, and Natural Resources, but they didn't put it under that. It's utilities, and it's, we'll get to that part when we look at each of the different areas, but there are some options there as well this year. So tier 3 is what they just got done with. Those are all the brand new ones. So the marketing or manufacturing, marketing, STEM, transportation, distribution, and logistics, and that new utilities. So in transportation, they did some shifting of some things. So basically we now have 3 buckets. We've got automotive, which we always had before. So collision repair, auto tech, and diesel tech. Supply chain, and they did add some new things to supply chain, like supply chain assistant. And then there's a whole brand new area under transportation, which is aviation. Aviation was a big push by the DWD. They were very excited to add aviation. And so, and apparently we have quite a few employers in North Central Wisconsin that are connected to the aviation industry. So we do have that option for students. In automotive.
Lynn,
Yep.
sorry to interrupt you, but before we get too deep in this, there was a question that Jamie brought up.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, if a skill on the checklist cannot be covered by the employer, can it be covered at a school?
Jamie, that is a great question. And the answer to that is yes. So when you are having that conversation with the employer and they determine that this particular thing is not something that's done on the job, that would then necessitate a second conversation with the class the student is in for youth apprenticeship back at your school. So if they're doing manufacturing and they're also in a tech ed class, and the student would be doing that skill in the tech ed class, that tech ed teacher can score the student for that skill and then sign off on the checklist at the end of the year. So great question. Any others while I'm paused? Because I'd like to ramble. Okay. Good to hear that, Jamie. Yes, and don't be worried. You're doing it right. So in automotive, students can do any of those things for either 1 year or for across junior and senior years if they so choose. They are trying a different kind of scoring for auto technician and collision repair, where a student would get a certain number of points instead of specific skills. We haven't seen exactly what that's going to look like yet. So for this year, we're going to be using the old checklist anyway for transportation, but that is going to change. And then under supply chain, all students are going to start as a supply chain assistant. And then from there, they will have an option if they do it junior and senior year of going into planning and purchasing or inventory or distribution or warehouse. And that just is some of the competencies. So aviation as that brand new area, again, students are going to start out in aviation maintenance fundamentals. And then from there, either go into airframe and power plant technician or avionics in their second year, if they do a 2-year program, or they could just do airport operations and management as a 1-year program. And there are a number of different certificates that a student can go on to get in the aviation category after they graduate from high school with our technical colleges. Sales and marketing has made some changes. So this is going to be a pretty significant change from what students have done. So in year 1, they can only choose professional sales, merchandising, or marketing. And I will tell you right now that professional sales is only going to count if kids are actually like selling a product, not working in Walmart. Professional sales is not what they're going to be doing. They could potentially do merchandising or marketing communication. But professional sales is, if they're working at a place that sells prefab homes, perfect. Professional sales will work for that. In year 2, then if students are doing a second year, they cannot take one of these 3. They have to move into either marketing research or marketing management. And again, this is going to mean a change for some of our students that have been working for Walmart for 2 years. That's not going to be an option anymore. They can do merchandising in their first year there, but these are not skills that students are going to be doing while they're working at one of your big box stores. So that's going to take some thinking about what we're going to be encouraging students to do in that sales and marketing area.
When do those changes start?
In 23-24. So we have 1 year of a grandfather clause that we can use the old checklist and they can be in. But if you've got a junior for this year who is potentially going to be doing it for 2 years, that's definitely a conversation to have with them, because they can do the merchandising for this year, but for next year, when we're now required to use all of the new checklists, they won't be able to do merchandising a second year. So that's a great question, Jess. There are certificate options that go along with students that are interested in marketing. So we've got some of those listed. In the STEM area, that was another area that they have new checklists. So students are going to take bioscience lab foundations in year 1. And then there is a bioscience application option if they are coming back for a second year. And in the engineering side of STEM, engineering drafting is going to be a year 1. And then as they continue their senior year, they can either do mechanical electrical engineering or civil engineering. And again, related certificates that students would be taking along or could potentially take along with that. And then brand new are the utility programs. So we have utility field technicians and gas distribution technician that will now be available to students. So the utilities field technician, they do things like perform routine service work and related duties on utility systems. The youth apprentice would perform a wide variety of activities at the work site and in the field, of course, along with a mentor. And then the gas distribution technician will assist and provide support in the installation, repair, and maintenance of natural gas distribution systems. And there are definite safety notes for that. So if they're under the age of 18, they are not able to use aerial lifts and climbing poles. There are no restrictions for youth apprentices reading gas or electric meters or assisting with relighting them with their mentor with them. For trenches, piers, foundation, and hole excavation, they can dig down to 4 feet. And then after that, an adult has to take over. And if they are under 18, they cannot use a chainsaw. And there are related certifications that students can be acquiring as they're doing this. And I know, like, one of the high school teachers I talked with last year said that they have their tech ed students in some instances get that forklift training. So great certification for a student to have if they're interested in that field. Health was an area that the DWD had updated some of them 2 years ago, and now they have them all updated. So most of the health programs are one-year programs now, except for dental assistant, nursing assistant, and resident aide. So everything else, and they have some new areas like phlebotomist. So with all of the areas on the left-hand side, those are now one-year programs. And then if students are interested in doing it junior and senior year, they would have to move into one of these 3 areas for their second year. Or, I mean, technically they could do, dietary aid 1 year and phlebotomist the second year. So they could do 2 one-year programs. So basically what the DWD did in these updates was they cleaned up the lists. They ensured that the skills worked for a broad range of employers. So for every one of these, they got an employer group together and took a look at the skills checklist that they had before and said, are these still relevant? Do we need to make changes? Are there certain things that we want all students to have in common? So that's where we see a lot of these one-year programs where everybody has to do this. And then in the second year, they would have options. They removed outdated and inappropriate tasks and then added new ones. So ambulatory support, for example, is one of those that there are general skills and specific skills that the student needs to do in order to complete the program. So the dietary aid, medical imaging, med lab assistant, which is also a new one, optical assistant, and physical therapy aid are all standalone programs. And phlebotomist is brand new. So students can take phlebotomist, as I said, 1 year. And then if they were really interested in something similar to that for a second year, med lab assistant has some of those same skills. So, and that would be very complimentary. And students could do them in either order. So they could do med lab first year and phlebotomist second year, or vice versa. So the program transition in 21-22. So this last year, all students had the option of using the new guides. For any of our juniors that were going to be doing a 2-year, we made sure that they were using the new guides. For this year, anything that's a tier 1 or a tier 2, so anything that's not what I just went through, is going to be using the new guides. Only the tier 3s are optional. And then starting next year in 23-24, all students will be using all the new guides. So any questions on any of the checklists and the updates before I move on? All righty. Then YA career mentors are really the key to success for youth apprenticeship. So every student needs to have a career mentor, and that career mentor is the person that kind of is their go-to at their place of employment. The career mentor is required to attend training to prepare them for their role. And I don't have it linked. I will get it linked here and make sure that you have the link to this, but Brooke just did a brand new career mentor training video that is great and goes through everything that a career mentor would need to know. If you're at this meeting, you know everything you need to know, but if you've got other people at your place of employment that are going to be mentors for students in YA, you definitely will want to get them the link to the new career mentor video. And Brooke, about how long is the video?
I think it's about 40, 45 minutes.
Okay, and it really leads them through, everything to do with youth apprenticeship and the checklist so that they know, and also working with students. If it's something, especially, if that's new to a particular career mentor, we want them to have a good idea of what it's like to work with teenagers. Career mentors meet with the youth apprenticeship coordinator at least 3 times a year. So ideally, at the beginning of the year, our local coordinators are meeting with our career mentors to hand off that checklist. So the career mentor is very aware of all the skills that a student needs to accomplish while they are out on the job. And then you meet with them and the student again in January to have a conversation about where the student is with regard to those skills. So the student knows what to work on for the second part of the year. That's the whole idea. And then the local coordinators can take that information back and turn that into a grade for the student for the first semester. And then you have that same conversation with the career mentor and the student at the end of the year, and then bring that information back to give them a grade for second semester. We expect our local coordinators to handle that paperwork. We do not expect students to be in charge of their own checklists because that's their grade. They shouldn't be in charge of their own grade. So it is the local coordinator that then takes that paperwork and scans it in and sends it off to CISA 9. And then Jean and I and Brooke pray to the youth apprenticeship gods that the pathway or that the youth apprenticeship program works online, because we've been having all kinds of issues this summer. So we still have checklists that we got this spring that we're working on getting uploaded, because it's been a bit of a challenge, but that's an ideal world. That's how it works. So that's a lot of information. At the very beginning, I asked you to think about those 3 questions. What went well the last year, either from a district standpoint or a business standpoint, changes that you'd like to see. And I'm actually going to write those down because we do make sure that the DWD hears that information. And then, how is the YA program helping your students or businesses? So I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see everybody and have a conversation about those 3 things. So what do we need to know?
Well, I guess I'll go first.
Thanks,
As far as the changes, you guys did it. Thanks for updating the finance pathway. It is so much more in line with what we actually do. There were so many things that we don't do any longer, like collecting credit card merchants, now that's all electronic and that sort of thing. So that's great. I don't really see any changes that need to be made on our end right now, but I'm sure maybe someone new will think that there are. As far as went well, we have 2 students in Merrill and 2 in Tomahawk, which I think is great. They're doing very, very well. We couldn't ask for anything better. Those kids are phenomenal. And as a matter of fact, one of our graduating seniors is going to still remain with us part-time while she goes to college. So we're very fortunate. They've helped out a lot, and they actually taught us a few things too. So it's great. As far as helping us, of course, in the summer, we're a little bit busier here at the bank. A lot of people want to take PTO. Our students have stepped up. They have learned extra skills and working extra hours, and God love them. They are going to have more than their 450 hours by the time they're done.
That's not unusual.
No, and they're doing great. Like I said, we just went through a whole rebrand, and we had a lot of extra duties that had to be done with that rebranding effort, and they stepped up, and they really all helped out. So we are very blessed to have them.
That's wonderful to hear.
This is Jamie, and I would say that the new checklists are much easier to read and navigate as well. I mean, they're just easier to read and work with. One question is, we're still trying to figure out the time management of trying to meet with all the businesses and that type of stuff. So that's probably still our biggest struggle, is trying to figure out how our schedules can work with their schedules and all of that good stuff.
I'm wondering for the first meeting, Something that I have heard other districts do years ago was just to get the checklists out and kind of go through the preliminary, hey, this is what YA is all about. There were some districts that did like an after school meeting or a night meeting, and they just invited a representative from all of the businesses, and they had the check there for them to take, and then they kind of could go through everything with everybody all at once. So I don't know if that might be something.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were thinking as well. The other question that I was asked this summer as I was talking to some folks who have businesses and just checking interest is one of them is a very new business and wasn't sure financially if she would love the help, but financially wasn't really sure if she could do it. And so are there grants associated with with YA program that can help employers pay for employees? I know it sounds a little goofy, but
I understand what you're saying.
It's something that I was asked. Or are there certain state, at least, tax incentive for having youth apprentice, that type of stuff?
Oh, I'm going to write that down, tax incentive, because that would actually for YA. That's a great idea. Unfortunately, right now, there isn't anything on the employer side of things. In fact, any of the financing that we get from the DWD, it's very clearly not to be used for salary. But I think that tax incentive idea is a great idea. And for YA to even work, all of that has to be passed through the legislature. That's how we get the funding. So I think that would be a great thing to ask them about for next year is there a way that we can have tax incentives for those businesses? So that's a great suggestion.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Everything else is just going swimmingly, and so we don't need to talk about it. Right. Well, we're just getting started with the new year. So we're as you're sending us your checklists for your students, we're getting them uploaded. So I think we're all caught up on the uploading of the new students. It's just the students that finished up in the DWD is very, very aware of all of the issues that have been happening with the YODA system this summer. So they know we've got all the paperwork there. There were a number of checklists that as we got them in, we went through them and made sure that everything was checked off. If there was anything that was missing or an employer put NA because they didn't think that they had to do it, those were all sent back to you in June so that you could take those back to the employers and make sure that they get everything gets checked off so that we can get them uploaded. So you should already have those, but if you've got any questions about any of those, just reach out to us and we're happy to help you with that. And as I said, we've got a meeting set up for our local coordinators. I don't have it on here, but that is going to be, I believe it is September 14th. And we are hoping to, in the morning, have a workshop on work-based learning opportunities for students with disabilities. So we're going to talk about how not only youth apprenticeship, but we're inviting actually some businesses that hire students with disabilities, some districts that have programs where they have students with disabilities out working in the workforce, and just to give districts an idea of how they can support students with disabilities to get them into the workforce already in high school. There are some things you can do through youth apprenticeship as well. So the plan is that would be in the morning, and then our coordinator meeting will be lunch and afternoon. So we definitely would love you to come for lunch if you can get out of the building, and then we'll do all of the updates in the afternoon with that. And then you can grab shirts for your kids. We've got tons of marketing materials for both your students and your employers as thank yous. So you definitely want to be there in person on the 14th so that you can pick all of those up. And our new advertising booklets as well. We'll have plenty of those for you. So any last questions? Okay. Hearing none, I will see you if you're a local coordinator on September 14th. Otherwise, have a great year. If you ever have any questions about anything, Brooke and I and Jean are all just an email or a call away. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Sarah.